Hello guys, welcome back to my second video on this channel. So basically, under the comments of my last video, one of my friends asked like if I could make a video talking about what reptiles were best for beginners. And I wanted to do that. However, I did want to start off by quickly saying that I'm not the hugest fan of that term necessarily. I mean, I get, obviously some reptiles are a lot harder to keep if you're a new keeper. Like, if you're a new keeper, you definitely don't want to get, monitors or tegus or, dragon snakes. I mean, although dragon snakes are an awful pet for most reptile keepers because, unfortunately, they're, almost all wild caught right now. And so they will very likely die on you. But you get what I mean. There are a lot of stuff that's really difficult and really not recommended if you're just starting out and you haven't had any reptiles before. However, my thing with the beginner reptile term is that a lot of the time people think that, oh, here comes Jinx. A lot of the time people think that that means that the animal is a lot of times people will be like, oh yeah, this is an easy pet, I can just get this, just impulse buy this and not do any research. Jinx, please. I'm trying to talk. No, get your butt out of the camera. Thank you. Here, you can sit here. But yeah, basically, a lot of times people will use it as an excuse to just impulse buy an animal, not doing research. And that's important no matter what you're getting. And also, I feel like your first reptile should be something that you are really passionate about. You shouldn't just get something because you did a Google search and found out that bearded dragons are apparently really easy to keep for beginners. Although, actually, I'm going to talk about them in this video, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case. But regardless, you should get something that you care about. Your first reptile should be something that you really want. And you should do a lot of research and know what you're getting into and all of that. So what I decided would be better to do is go over the, commonly referred to as beginner pets, the reptiles commonly referred to as beginner pets, and, my opinion on each of them. So, yeah, let's do that. Okay, so again, I have a Google Doc here, and I basically wrote down all the species that I want to go over, and my categories for the factors is probably a better word for what makes something a good pet for a beginner to have are: number one, can it hurt you? If so, how badly? I feel like that's probably pretty important, as again, you wouldn't want a beginner getting a crocodile monitor. I mean, you wouldn't want even an advanced keeper getting a crocodile monitor in most cases, but again, you get what I mean. Can it hurt you or potentially kill you? You probably don't want that if you're just starting out. Number two, how is handling? Is it easy to handle? Is it really difficult to handle? That's also important, I feel. And then the cost. It's actually 3 categories. I'm stupid. I think I said 4. But yeah, cost. That's another one. Obviously, reptiles in general are expensive. Even if, it's a crested gecko that you get at the store for $50, you need to spend money on their tanks. And the UVB and all that. Reptiles are always going to be expensive. But obviously, there are ones that are significantly more expensive, and that can be, difficult. Again, Burmese pythons, although also Burmese pythons could potentially hurt you or kill you. So that's also another reason why they are not on this list. But, they need huge enclosures and food items that are really, really expensive and inaccessible to the vast majority of people. So yeah, let's just start off. First one. This one might be one of the most well-known, all of these are really well-known, but this one is probably one of the biggest, I would imagine: leopard geckos. So, I don't own any of these. I just have, my ball python and my crested geckos, which are also gonna both be on this list. But yeah, I don't have any leopard geckos, but I have interacted with them before, and I do definitely enjoy them. But so, first off, first category, no, they cannot really cause harm. I mean, they could potentially bite you, but I don't think it would really hurt all that bad. If you've been bitten by a leopard gecko and it has hurt really bad, then I guess feel free to correct me in the comments. But it's not gonna kill you. I mean, you're not gonna get murdered by a leopard gecko. So I don't really think you have to worry about that. And also, typically they're very like docile, from what I've heard. I've heard as babies they can be a little bit like, because they're so small and they've just basically been born. They can be a little like stressed, but still they tend to be pretty docile. So yeah, that's a good point for them for sure. And um handling, the thing is about them is that, while again they are docile and aren't likely to try and like bite you or anything, they can, number one, drop their tails, which is not the most fun thing to deal with. Although they do grow back, which is good. Um but they are also pretty small and fragile, and they are very susceptible to like falling. So if you accidentally like drop them somehow, it could really be bad for them. So don't do that. If you're handling them, handle them close, handle them like over a desk. Like I have a table right here. Handle them over a desk, not with your cat on it, obviously, because but keep the cat or dog out of the room and handle them over a desk, or handle them on like the floor or on like a bed. Don't have them just don't stand in the middle of your room and hold them, or stand over the edge of a balcony and hold them. That's not a good idea. Although granted, the balcony one is probably not a good idea for any reptile. Maybe don't do that. But yeah, you get what I mean. Be careful with them. They can be very fragile. That's the thing with most of the geckos we're going to talk about this list, or with both of the geckos we're going to talk about on this list. They can be fragile. So be careful with them. That's what you really have to, be sure of. But leopard geckos are, I've heard, very sweet and very nice to handle. So as long as you do it responsibly and you make sure that they can't get hurt, then you're totally fine. Yeah. And now cost. So this is where I see a lot of people mess up with their leopard geckos. And also, I was doing research for this video, and I would heavily recommend Reptiles for this exact reason, because they actually, have decent information and correct information. Because I was looking up, what size tank do leopard geckos need, and it told me 20 gallons. Like, no, no, that's not, no. I would say, yeah, look on Reptiles. They have better information about that. 50 gallons is typically, like the minimum. Sometimes people will do 40, but I would say 50. Just, I mean, it's better to just do that. And 50-gallon tanks are typically around like $300, which is a lot. And the best like size tank you could get would probably be like 3 by 2 by 2 feet, and that is like around 500, which is very expensive. So yeah, they also obviously need heat lamps and thermostats. If you have a heating fixture, get a thermostat. Please get a thermostat. And do not do those heat mats, please. Like, it's a little less bad with leopard geckos, because at least they're not an arboreal species, but still, heat mats just aren't very effective. Just don't do those. It's just way better to have like a heat lamp or a ceramic heat emitter. Just a way better idea overall. I would definitely recommend that. And then also, obviously, you need UVB, and you'll need to pay for like bugs and stuff. But because they're so small, they don't need too many, so it's not like too unreasonable. Like, it's with tree monitors, you have to feed them like an insane amount of bugs when they get to be adults. These guys, it's not as crazy, but yeah. So that's the first one. Secondly, what are you trying to eat? What are you doing? No. Oh my god. She's trying to get my crested gecko. Leave him alone, please. Oh my god. Okay. Well, I was gonna bring out lemon for this one, but he is currently in his log, so I don't want to mess with him. But ball pythons, let's get into this. This is a species that I do own, so I feel like I'm a little bit more equipped to talk about this one. Number one, ability to cause harm. They can bite, obviously, but they really don't usually. I've had him for about 5 years. It'll be 6 in this November. Yeah. Um, he's only bitten me once, and I didn't even notice that he bit me. Basically, I was doing something stupid. There was like a spider that had gotten into his old tank somehow. Like, this is his new one, but he had, when he was a little bit smaller, he had a 40-gallon, and somehow this spider had gotten in there, and I was trying to get it out, and I had like reached in over his log, and I didn't notice there was a hole in it, and I reached like over it, and it probably caused like a shadow, and it scared the crap out of him, obviously. And I thought I felt something kind of like touch my hand, and I was like, huh. And then I like pulled it back out, and there was like a little bit of blood on it, and I was like, oh, he just bit me. Like, it didn't hurt at all. Because, people are, I don't know. I thought it would hurt more getting bit by a snake. Maybe mine just didn't bite me very hard. I don't know, though. It really did not hurt. I didn't even feel it, to be completely honest. But yeah, they really can't do much damage. At least mine can't. So yeah. Handling, they're really sweet. They're great. This was actually when I first was getting, like, when I wanted to get my first snake, I was really torn between ball pythons, corn snakes briefly, but it was mainly between ball pythons and western hognoses. And so I was like really stuck between the two. And I went to this one like summer camp thingy, and we got to hold both, or all three. I got to hold like a corn snake, I got to hold a western hognose, I got to hold a ball python, and what ended up winning for me was ball python. That was the reason I ended up going with lemon, because I liked holding them the most out of all three. And, obviously they're very docile, they're very sweet, and they're very slow moving snakes, and so you don't have to worry about them like, falling out of your hands or anything. But another thing that makes you not have to worry about that is the fact that they hold on to you, which I really appreciated. It's just great. Like, with hognoses and corn snakes, you have to be a lot more careful holding them, just because they can kind of like, yeah, you have to kind of use like two hands. You got to do like the staircase method where you like do this and blah blah blah. But ball pythons, I mean, you can basically one hand them and they're fine, because you don't have to worry about them falling off of your hands. And they seem to like holding on to you more than you holding on to them. So yeah, I just liked holding them more, and so that was the thing that won them over for me. They're definitely my favorite beginner snake. And I want to quickly talk about western hognoses, because I didn't put them on this list, because like I feel like they're not as commonly referred to as beginner pets as these other animals. I don't think they're like quite as well known by people who are just getting into reptile keeping. But to sum it up, at least like the males, they typically need like smaller tanks. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head. Obviously do your research, and you should not be using what I'm saying in this video as a care guide, because I'm not going very, like, I'm not like getting super detailed with it. You need to do your own research. I would recommend like Reptiles. I'd recommend watching like various YouTube channels talking about it. There's all sorts of things. But yeah, western hognoses, they're pretty great. They're also very docile, very unlikely to bite you. They are mildly venomous, not in a way that's really medically significant for most people, but there is a chance that you could be allergic to their venom and have a stronger reaction, so be careful with that, obviously. And they need heating and UVB and all that stuff. So, and a thermostat, obviously, and rodents. But yeah, go do your own research about that. So again, with ball pythons, the cost, you typically need, for at least the males anyway, you need a 4x2x2 foot tank. That's what I have for mine. However, I went to Repticon the other day, and it was the NARBC in Dallas, and it's actually going on still today. I'm just not there anymore. But I saw, like, obviously, I've known that female ball pythons are bigger than the males, but I guess I forgot how much bigger because I went there and I saw some females and I was like, oh my god! I mean, like, I was looking at this 7-year-old female and mine's like 5 years old, and I was like, she could eat him. Like, ball pythons don't eat other snakes, but like, she could. I mean, it was insane, and it's not just that they're longer; they're like just like thick, huge snakes. I mean, it's crazy. I love female ball pythons though; they look so awesome. I'd love to have one at some point, but yeah, not now. With female ball pythons, for that reason, I would definitely recommend bigger, because I've heard some of them can get like 6 feet. In which case, get something bigger, like maybe a like 7 foot tank, 7 by 2 by 2, something like that, like. Big tanks, please. Yippee. But yeah, and then obviously they need, the heat lamp, the thermostat, UVB, obviously research what type of UVB is best. I would always say linear UVB over like the coils. I again recommend Arcadia. I have a shade dweller for my ball python, but yeah. Um, and then yeah, that's it. Also rodents. Get them rodents. If you can feed them rats, I've heard that's typically better. And I've recently got mine on small rats, which that has been good. He enjoys those. So yeah, that's good. Now next, corn snakes. So again, the main difference between these two and the main reason I didn't choose corn snakes was just because of the handling thing. Like, I just preferred holding ball pythons. I like the way they hold on to you. But yeah, so another difference between these two, though, is that there is one thing that I definitely should mention in terms of ball pythons, and that is that getting them to eat can sometimes be rough. Um, ball pythons are really well known for occasionally not eating, just for no reason. They just don't eat, and that can be very stressful for new keepers. It was very stressful for me, and I'd had reptiles before, although granted he was my first snake. But yeah, it can be stressful, and getting them off of like live mice and getting them onto frozen can be really annoying as well. So I would recommend, if you're a beginner, ask, like, don't buy any reptile from like PetSmart or Petco, especially not Petco, but don't do that. They don't take the greatest care of their animals, especially Petco, and a lot of times they're, very skinny and not, just don't buy them. I know it can, going there, it can feel really sad. You want to be like, oh, I want to help the animal, and it's like, yeah, but you are, in doing that, giving them just more money, which isn't great. It's a rough situation, but yeah. I would recommend getting ball pythons either from like an expo where you can meet the ball pythons in person. That's personally my favorite place to buy reptiles, is like when I can see them in person. But also you can get them on like Morph Market or like a breeder's website. So yeah. But most of the time when you buy a ball python, the breeder will tell you what they're already eating, or you can ask. Like, mine told me, oh yeah, he's on live like hopper mice. So yeah. But on Morph Market, you can, if you look in like the ball pythons category, you can basically set the filter to only have like ball pythons already eating frozen thawed, which I would heavily recommend for a beginner keeper, just because like it's just easier, honestly. Then that way you don't have to stress about getting them from live to frozen. They're already on frozen. So yeah, that's a quick thing I want to mention before I get more into corn snakes. Thing is, with corn snakes, they do not have that problem, at least from what I've heard. They are very, very food motivated snakes. However, that can also cause a little bit of issues sometimes. I don't think they're as bad as king snakes in terms of this, but they can very much like bite when they think, when like you open the tank, because sometimes they can think that you're feeding them and they get excited. There are ways to deal with this. I've heard of people who will like tap the snake with a snake hook when it's getting handled, or vice versa. Like, they'll do that when it's getting fed, so that it learns that when it's getting tapped, it's either, not getting fed or it's getting fed, and then it'll realize when it hasn't been tapped, it's not getting fed. So yeah, I recommend doing something like that with these guys just because they can be very, very food motivated, which is honestly good for a beginner keeper because that way you don't have to worry about them not eating the way that you can occasionally worry with ball pythons. Mine's been pretty good about it. Recently, he hasn't refused to eat in a long time, and that's kind of just been I've kind of just started basically, instead of having like a specific feeding schedule with him, I will like look for signs that he is hungry because usually he tends to hide a lot. Some ball pythons are just like that, but I'll notice that when he is hungry, he comes out more and is looking around more. And then that's when I feed him, and that way, oh whoops, what in the world? I had that set up. My bad. Sorry, I somehow clicked the voice recording thingy on my phone. Not good. But yeah, that way he hasn't refused to eat in a long time. So yeah. But yeah, corn snakes don't have to worry about that, which is great. Handling, again, like I said, you have to like make sure you're holding on to them. And they can be like, they're a little skinnier and like less sturdy than ball pythons, especially female ball pythons. So yeah, just be careful with them. You know, they can be a little bit fragile, but you know, again, they need a very similar sized tank to ball pythons. Again, the females get bigger, so you might want to get a bigger tank than this for a female, but the like recommended would probably be like a 4x2x2. That's probably a good size. And you need like a heat lamp, thermostat, rodents, UVB, the whole UVB is going to be a constant for all the reptiles here. And yeah, heat lamps are going to be all but one. So, yeah. So, next, bearded dragons. I don't really think these guys should be recommended for beginners as much as they are, just because the thing is with them is a lot of the time beginners will do, like from what I've heard, they'll do their diet wrong because a lot of times they'll feed the wrong vegetables or they won't feed the right percentage of insects to vegetables, or you know, all sorts of things like that. Or people will try and feed their baby bearded dragons pellets, which I've heard is very not good, and you should not do that. Again, this is not a species that I've owned, and it's not even really a species I ever plan to own. But you know, in my research that I was doing for this, that was kind of what I found. Again, ability to cause harm, they can bite, but they really aren't very likely to. The thing that mainly gets them points on this is going to be the handling portion, because again, they're very docile and they're very sturdy. They're the sturdiest lizards that we have on this list. They're very unlikely to, like, you're not likely to hurt them. I mean, they're very, again, sturdy lizards. And yeah, but just yeah, very great. I do think they're fun to hold. I have held bearded dragons before, and that was fun. Again, cost, they also need like a 4x2x2 tank minimum. And they need heat lamps, thermostat, vegetables, and insects, and they need UVB. But yeah, you have to make sure that you look into like the right percentages to feed them of those two at different times in their life, because I've heard like sometimes it can change. So yeah, do that. And finally, hold on, give me 1 second. I need to grab Ginger really quick. Okay, so you might end up hearing a cat screaming in the bathroom because I had to lock her in there because, yeah. So, crested geckos. This is gonna be, I saved these guys for last because in my opinion, they're the best. Sorry, Lemon, but these guys, peak. Trust. So, first off, ability to cause harm, absolutely none. The worst thing these guys will do is occasionally potentially pee on you when you're holding them if you get scared. She's never done that to me. It'd be funny if she did now, but are you actually gonna pee on me? Don't do that. No, you're not. Okay, you're just gonna jump. Okay, so she's never done that to me, but he has. He does not like handling very much. So that's why I picked her up to do this video. Her name's Ginger. If you didn't see my last video, she is a sweetheart. Yeah. Oh, why are you sliding so much? Oh my gosh, hi, I've got you. But yeah, so I'm gonna try and do this quickly because like, yeah, but handling. So again, they can pee on you, and they pee and poop on you at the same time. I've had that happen to me a couple times with him, which is not fun. It's not ideal. But she's never done that to me because she's a sweetheart. I would heavily recommend, if you get one of these as like a little baby, hand feed them from when they're young, because that way they tend to be a lot better, like in terms of handling. I've hand fed her or like since she was little, and she is just the sweetest. So yeah, heavily recommend that. Yeah, hi. Oh, whoops, sorry. There you go. The one thing about them, or like the things about them that are negative in terms of handling, is just that you can see she's very small, fragile. They're less like vulnerable to falling because they're an arboreal species, but you still don't want to let them fall, obviously. But yeah, and the thing is about them, they can be a little jumpy at times. And you can tell with her, she's not really jumpy, but she does like to move around a lot. So yeah. And also the thing is they can drop this tail here, and if they do, it's not going to grow back. So that is probably the worst thing about them. But honestly, oh, what are you doing? Why are you like sliding? Oh, come here. No, don't type. Okay. But yeah, now in terms of cost, she currently is in an 18 by 18 by 24 tank, and I'm gonna get him. He's in a kind of weirdly dimensioned tank right now. I'm gonna try and get him a, what are you doing? Oh my god, what are you doing? Okay, there you go. I'm gonna get him an 18 by 18 by 36 at some point. So 18 by 18 by 24 tanks are typically around like $200, whereas the 18 by 18 by 36 are typically like $350, which is a lot, but it's cheaper in comparison to some of the other tanks on this list. And they need to eat Crested Gecko diet, which is great because you can buy it in like big amounts, and so you have it like stored. It's just like this powder stuff. Sometimes they'll take insects, some of them won't even though. Like I got her to eat a mealworm once when I dipped it in her food, but I put a mealworm in front of his face and he like ran away from it. I'm like, gosh, what are you doing? But yeah, as you can tell, they're pretty jumpy, but she's pretty calm, like for a Crested Gecko. Again, you need UVB, but you actually don't really want to have a heat lamp unless you have like a really cold house. Like typically you keep these guys at like room temperature, like 70, 72. If it gets too hot, it can be really bad for them. So yeah, again, if your house really is cold and you need to use a heat source, definitely thermostat is very, very important, no matter what species, but with these guys especially. Because if it gets too hot, it can be really bad. What are you doing? Okay, I think I'm gonna end the video now and I'm gonna put her back. But yeah, that's kind of my like ranking of all of them, or like my rating of all of them. Personally, ball python and Crested Geckos are always going to be my favorites. I just, I'm a little biased though because those are the ones that I own. But Crested Geckos, definitely top number one on this list. But get whatever animal you want as your first pet as long as you're prepared for it. Like I would not recommend you get like a monitor, but you get what I mean. Find an animal that you think you can reasonably take care of and you can take care of well. So yeah.